Good morning, students. Today we will study about the sexual reproduction in plants. We all know that flower is considered to be the sexual part of a plant, which comprises of the male reproductive part, that is the stamen, and the female reproductive part, that is pistil. So let's get started and study in detail about stamen and pistil and how the fertilization takes place in case of plants. Now see, as I told you, flower is the sexual part of the plant which takes part in sexual reproduction. Rest all are vegetative parts and they take place in part in asexual reproduction. So what is the male reproductive part? So male reproductive part is the stamen. This is male reproductive part. It has got anther and filament. Anther has the male gamete, that is the pollen grains inside it. So pollen grains or the male gametes, they are present inside the anther. Once the anther matures, it breaks off and releases the pollen grain into the environment, and this filament is a long tubular structure which holds the anther. Inside anther, pollen grains are present. Now see the female reproductive part. Female reproductive part is called pistil, or it is also called carpel. It comprises of the stigma, the style, and the ovary. These are the three parts. So stigma plus style plus ovary is called pistil. Inside ovary there are ovules. Ovule may be many number, it may be one. Like in case of lemon, you have seen many ovules, because ovules in future become seed. Okay, and the ovary in future becomes fruit. This you have to remember. So ovary in future will become fruit when it swells up, and ovule it becomes seed. So you must have seen lemons, many seeds are there. It means initially it would have it would have many ovules. So many ovules, many seed. Okay, and ovule in future become seed, and ovary in future become the fruit when it ripens up. Okay, now see what happens, how the pollen grains come to the female part. So this is the flower, and next topic will be pollination. So because before fertilization there is a natural process called pollination. Fertilization is the process of fusion of the gametes. So gametes will fuse together when they will meet. So how the gametes they come closure? So that they come closure by the process of pollination. There can be two ways. The one is self pollination and another is cross pollination. So the transfer of the pollen grains from anther to stigma of the same flower. You can see this is the anther and this is the pistil. So if the transfer of pollen grain is from anther to stigma of the same flower, then it is called self pollination. And if there is a transfer of the pollen grains are very minute, very small and light. So they get transferred, if they get transferred from one flower to another flower, in this case you can see, so it is cross pollination. That will be cross pollination. So ultimately there should be transfer of the pollen grains. So what is pollination? Pollination is the biological process of transfer of the pollen grains, that is the male gamete, from one flower to another flower. If it happens in one flower, like in case of self pollination, if it happens in the same flower, then it is self pollination. And in cross pollination, the transfer of pollen grains is from the anther of the one flower to the stigma of the another flower. That is cross pollination. Okay, now see, once the pollen grain has gone to the female reproductive part, that is first part will be the stigma. So this is the stigma. Stigma is having a large surface area so that it can have more of pollen grains, because few pollen grains they will be successful in getting inside the ovary so that they can fertilize the ovule which is present inside the ovary. So what happens, for example, first step will be the pollination, where the transfer of the pollen grains, that is the male gamete, goes to the stigma, sometimes of the same flower, that is self pollination, or different flower, that is cross pollination. So ultimately the pollen grain has reached the stigma, then it starts germinating. It starts germinating means the pollen tube extends and it gets deeper inside the ovary, and then it meets the ovule which is present there. Ovule will be the female gamete. So this male gamete, that is a sperm, gets combined with the ovule which is present inside, and this process, when they combine together, the pollen grain, when it gets combined with the ovule, what is formed ultimately? The zygote is formed. So zygote will be the product of fertilization. Later on, zygote will develop into embryo, and embryo will develop into seed. So as I told you, ovule ultimately develop into seed, okay, and ovary becomes the fruit. So this part will swell up, and this is ovary, and it becomes fruit, and ovule which is present inside, you can say ovum also. So that ovule, once it gets fertilized with the pollen grain, it first forms zygote, then it forms embryo, and ultimately in future it becomes seeds. So this is how the fertilization takes place in case of plants. Thank you very much. Revise well.